and welcome to the ninth part of this character creation series. Now we just finished our block out. The character has already taken shape quite well. We can also render it and preview it with the different viewport modes, but it looks pretty good so far. One thing that slightly bothered me was that this part seemed a little bit small, so let's just quickly adjust that before we get started. Something like this should be fine. And also I realized the ears had a bit of a different shape in the design, so maybe my drawing was a bit wrong in first place, so I'm just going to make them a bit shorter and push them out further. I might even go as far as to take these down a little bit more, so we kind of have this sort of shape with the tip. And with this we're ready to go. These were just some small adjustments that I wanted to make. Now in this part I believe we'll start with something that's a bit challenging. Today we have to start using the sculpting tools to add detail. You could also do it in modeling. You know, there's the subdivision surface approach where you add a subdivision surface modifier like this, and you know, you go in and add more detail to like give definition and so on. But it can also be a bit limiting. I mean, in the end there's no right and wrong, honestly. Pick whatever works best for you, but in this course I want to introduce to you some sculpting, and yeah, if you continue learning more about character modeling, you'll find that that's a very good skill to have either way. But you know, the base is already there. It won't be anything too challenging. You won't have to make anything up from scratch. It's just polishing, adding details and so on. But I'll guide you through. So let's take a look at what we need. So right now we have 3 objects here. Let's see. Let's just clean up the scene. We don't need our reference images. Then for now we don't need the helmet, and we don't need the ring, and we don't need the hair. So we only have the body left at the moment, visible. And I want to make a copy of this. So I make a copy. Let's hide the original. And in the copy of that, let's delete everything we don't need anymore. So I'm just going to select the ear and the body, then use Control I to invert, and then just hit X to delete the vertices. Sorry, I didn't have my did I have them on? Wait, why are these not showing? Now, there we go. So here you have my keyboard shortcuts. So X for delete, and here, Control I. So yeah, this is the part that we're going to focus on today. It's, I guess, the most important part for me. You know what, actually, sorry, let's undo a few steps. Instead of deleting this part, don't hit X to delete, hit P to separate instead. So that way we can still see it, but we'll only be working on this upper part. Now what you want to do next is go to the modifiers and apply this modifier. Just go into this menu here and hit apply. So now the mirroring effect is now applied to the whole model. And the next thing is to get started with sculpting. So to start sculpting, basically you go here, click on the object mode thing, and switch to sculpt mode. And you should be ready to go. So you can already see that if you click on the object, you start sculpting. There are just a few settings we need to do first. If the colors bother you, quickly go to face sets and hit face set from visible. That just makes it all white again. Then maybe let's drag this a bit wider. Too wide, I like this a bit better. I like to use the clay strips brush a lot, so let's just switch over to that for now. I want to work with symmetry, so make sure you turn on X symmetry, so now it's all symmetrical once we work on it. And finally, since we will be needing more geometry to work with, we now have to remesh this whole object. We still have a copy of this whole thing, so don't worry about losing any progress here. And I'm just considering very quickly, maybe we should delete the ears for a moment. So yeah, I'm just going back to edit mode here, select the ears on both sides this time, and also separate them into a separate object. I just want to leave them for later, so that we can focus on shaping them properly instead of having to deal with the complexity of the intersection. So there we go, that's our starting point. Let's look around if everything looks good, everything looks fine. And now in Sculpt mode, go in here to the tool settings, active tool, and workspace settings, go down to Remesh, or just click on Remesh tool here, but I mean, I like to do it here as well. I'll set this one quite a bit lower. This is the resolution, but be careful with this one, like just to demonstrate what it does quickly. If I hit Remesh here, you see it remeshes it, but it's very rough. It hardly gave us any additional geometry. But if you reduce that, you get more and more resolution to work with. Oh, by the way, let's quickly jump into edit mode and fill the open holes. So here we have a hole, let's fill it with F. Here we have an open hole, fill it with F, and here as well. And yeah, if you have color again, just go to face set from visible. We don't need the face sets for now, so just clear them. And then try again. So now you shouldn't get any artifacts, but it's still not enough resolution, so I'm going to turn this down again. But the thing is, the lower you turn this value, the more points you'll get, and that can very quickly go out of hand. So I'll set it to 0.01, and that works fine for me. But be careful when you approach, low numbers, because it can easily be such a high number of points that you attempt to generate that it might maybe could crash Blender. I'm not sure if it crashes, but yeah, it could be a bit problematic. So now you'll see that it's all rough and not very smooth. So I have to go in and fix a couple of things now. So the Sculpt mode, I mean, honestly, you do need a graphic tablet for this stuff. I'm sorry that to those of you who don't have it, but really, if you're into this stuff, get the cheapest graphic tablet out there. It's just something you will need in this kind of job, or even as a hobby. You won't get far with just a mouse. So I really hope you can understand that that I'm using this. It's just a requirement. But with that, graphic tablet, you should be able to, touch lightly or press stronger to get different levels of, influence here. And with a clay brush now, you can either just make some strokes to, get some new detail in, or you can hold Shift and while holding Shift, make a brush stroke to smooth things out. Now for starters, I'm just going to use hold Shift and brush over the model a bit to just smooth things out a bit. Doesn't need to be perfect, doesn't need to be all clean. In fact, I'm trying not to use it too much because I'm going to be losing a little bit of volume as I do this. But just go over the head for now, just do the most important parts. Let's get this a little smoother. So this is the starting point. Let's see. Let's do down here as well. Wow, I really hope this goes well for me, even because I'm not used to working in Blender. I personally like to use ZBrush, and if you want to challenge yourself, then feel free to do it in ZBrush as well. But for everyone else, I'm trying to do it here in Blender, just to show you that it's not a big difference. I mean, sculpting is just sculpting in the end. Shouldn't make a big difference. It's just getting used to the tools. So, yeah. Alright, okay, I should talk about what I'm doing, I guess. So I use smoothing first of all, then I use the flatten brush sometimes, or the scrape brush as well, to flatten some details. I mean, I saw that here was something, sticking out. And I want to flatten this, of course, with the front, and I use the scrape brush, for example, or the flatten brush to just go over this a little bit to flatten it up. It's really just like clay. You just look around, see this edge, for example. If you feel like it's a bit too harsh, just go over it a little bit. If you don't like the flow of it, just undo it once. And then you still have some slight edges, so just hold Shift and smooth it away. Holding Shift basically works with almost any brush. So if you want to smooth it, just hold Shift and brush over it, and you should be fine. Okay, now we are ready to start. And there is not really a right place to begin. I'm just going to look around and find issues and begin to work on them. So for the neck, for example, it seems a bit, square. I want to round this up a bit more. We could try to use the flatten brush. I do want to point out that, that doesn't work too well. Let's go with the clay strips instead. If you make a normal stroke, you get, for example, here additional volume, but you can also hold Control and make a stroke, then you get sort of the inverted effect of that same brush. So in this case, this part stands out a little bit. I'll press F, by the way, to change the brush size, and you can also hit Shift F to change the opacity, but we don't need to change that at the moment. And just while holding Control, I'm going to scrape away a little bit here with the clay, clay strips brush, and then smooth it out a little bit. Hold Shift and smooth. In the back as well, hold Control, go over this part a little bit, and then hold Shift and smooth it out. Now here is a little bit of a step. We can brush over this in this way. I want you to be a bit conscious about the direction in which you make your strokes as well. Try to make your strokes in the same direction as the flow of the muscles, or use sort of like a cross-hatching pattern almost. Give your brush strokes a consistency in a way anyway. That will definitely help your quality in general. Like if I was to just do brush strokes in random directions, it would look messy. But if I keep them consistent, it can even be in a different direction, but it just needs to be consistent. Then it would look a lot nicer. So here I did like almost against the flow actually, but it still worked out because it was consistent. If you need to isolate your body for a moment, I don't know actually, I have a different keyboard layout, but the slash key on my keyboard brings you into I'm not sure what it's called, it's maybe a local view or an isolation mode or something of sorts. Let's see if I can find it here. I believe it was local camera. No, okay, I'm not sure. But if you hit this key that you can see down here, then you can isolate and isolate the object that you're working with. Just be sure to remember to hit that button again to toggle out of that mode, because it can be quite difficult to find the reason, because if you try to unhide anything, just nothing will show. It will just seem broken until you find out that that's the button that you need to hit. So now that we have it isolated, let's go in a bit more and just smooth things out a little bit. Let's see. I'll just smooth out the head quite a bit now. So if you need to, by the way, let's take a quick look at our references. I'll unhide them quickly here, and we'll use them to roughly adjust our proportions now, because with smoothing we deformed the head quite a bit. I believe that we do need to fix things up a little bit here. I'll use the grab brush and begin here in the back to just with a very, very large brush adjust the proportions in a very smooth way. As you do this, I want to make sure that the front isn't like higher than the back. So I'm not sure if you were able to see it before, but it seems like the front has a higher point, or the highest point is more towards the front rather than the back. So I just want to adjust that a little bit. Also, I believe that the head is a bit too sort of flat. I'll pull it a bit more forward to the front and a bit more to the back here. And finally, let's take a closer look in this section. You don't want to, take a small brush size right away to adjust anything here. It's very important to start first with the very rough shapes, get the rough shapes right, and then move on to the finer shapes. So just look, you know, at the silhouette, the curvature. Sometimes you hold shift and smooth things out a little bit. But all in all, this is now our shape. We can do the same thing from the front again. I might actually go ahead and just stick even more to the front rather than what I learned from the side view. So yeah, we have a little bit of adjustment to do here. Let's see, something like this maybe. And that looks good so far. Alright, now let's continue by adding a few more, by cleaning it up a tiny bit more. There's something that bothers me here. It's very hard to see these kind of things, I must admit, and that's sort of the kind of training that you need, or like things that you learn with practice. But if I look at the curvature, I feel I want to try that, just to make this a little bit more roundish, and I can do that by using a clay build-up brush and just stroking very lightly over this edge. All in all, this should kind of help smoothen it out a little bit better. Maybe I'll hold control on the peak here just to flatten it down a little bit, and then I'll hold shift and try to smooth it out again. Let's see if that actually improved anything. Like, hopefully this helped make it a bit smoother. Maybe hold shift over this corner a bit as well. I'll go back to the grab brush and just I see that here it's going a bit inwards, and I don't like that as well. So I'm just pulling this out a little bit here as well. So really take time with this. You didn't need to change a lot with this model because our base mesh was already quite accurate. So pretty sure it's not too difficult what we're doing here, but yeah, still take your time and try to just get this as good as you can. We don't really see the back of the head, but yeah, it won't hurt as well. Yeah, from the top view, I definitely don't like this, by the way. I want the back to be a little bit wider here as well, not just the front. Make it a bit nicer, a bit rounder, and so that we don't have just one peak here in one place. It should all be a bit more even in this area. So that looks better now. Let's see from the bottom. The bottom looks nice now. It definitely would have looked weird before. Look at this. It definitely has like a weird peak here in the front. These are the things you want to look for. Look for these sort of distortions, these sort of mistakes. Look from all angles and fix them up. If you're not sure about what it's supposed to look like, go and look for like anime figures of similar proportions. There are a bunch of small, like very stylized figures of characters. Those are very good references. And look at what it's supposed to look like, basically. Should be fine like that. Finally, I don't think we need this edge down here anymore. Let's go in with, let's try flatten brush this time. Flatten doesn't really work for me. Let's take this scrape brush instead. So with this scrape brush, I just go over this edge a couple of times, and that takes away that detail pretty well. Maybe we need to pull it out a little bit again. Like this. Alright. It's very detailed, fine work, but I think we're good now. Yeah, the shading can sometimes be a little bit distracting. I suggest, more than the shading, try to focus more on the silhouette. The silhouette is a much better source of information compared to the shading. shading can be a bit deceiving at sometimes. So yeah, just look at the silhouette more. I'm still a bit concerned about this part. Let's see if we can do something about it. So I'm just using the scrape brush this time to kind of scrape away while flattening, and that also gives a smooth surface usually. So that helped clean up this area a little bit, I believe. I'm also like making a brush stroke along the shading line to really align the surface with the shading. So now this shaded line is a little bit smoother. I just didn't like how we lost a little bit of volume again. I'll try to fix the head shape just a tiny bit here now. Maybe the head needs to be a bit smaller up here, so that the helmet properly will fit. Let's push this to the front a bit more as well. And I think that this looks pretty good now. Pretty happy with this. Okay, now just very quickly, actually this video is getting long. Yeah, sculpting takes a bit more time than the other steps, but just very quickly before ending this video, I want to take my clay strips brush and try to improve the neck a little bit at least. So I'm going with my strokes along the neck like this, not touching this part too much, so that I give it like a little bit of a crease here. So I'm just stroking next to the crease basically. That will emphasize the crease. And also when smoothing it out now, while holding shift, I don't go over this edge too much, so that we have a bit of a creased edge here. If you need to make the crease stronger, there's also the crease brush, with which you can just, you know, brush over this part a little bit and make it a bit sharper. So I just wanted to make it a bit sharper anyway. Give it more definition, and that looks a bit better now. You can also, for now, since we don't have the additional detail now, go down here and brush a bit over here. Don't brush in the back too much. Like the skin is supposed to be quite smooth here in the back, but in the front feel free to, you know, give it a few strokes to make this one sharp as well. And if you need to adjust now the proportions a little bit, just use the grab brush to, or the move brush, or whatever it's called in your sculpt tool. Use it to align things a bit. I'm also smoothing it out. And finally, with the scrape brush, maybe could try to flatten this part in the front just a tiny bit, and that looks fine. Alright, so I think this is going to be it for this part. We're not quite done here, but you can see in which direction we're headed. Let's try to quickly show the helmet and the hair and the ring. So we're adding details slowly, but I hope you can see, you know, what direction we're working towards, and I hope that you're happy with your progress. Give it a shot. You'll have a lot to experiment with, I believe, with the sculpt tools. Maybe open even a separate blend file and just play around with all the different settings. Ask your questions in chat as well, and answer questions that you know the answer to when you see some. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it as always, and I'll see you in the next one.